Hey everybody, welcome to Workforce Gaming. I'm Brad, here with Doug.
Hi.
I currently have Gamepass, which means you kind of get to jump into a bunch of weird games that you'd never really do before. And found one with an astronaut called the Turing Test, which is a reference to AIs and stuff like that. So I instantly went,
The
well,
second astronaut game we tried on Game Pass.
yeah, because I just went through and tried all the ones that had astronauts. That was an afternoon. But anyway, so I jumped into this one, which is a puzzle game. And
Yeah, which is weird. Stop.
yeah,
Hard stop. I feel like I've tried to make you play puzzle games for literally years.
you have. You told me play The Witness, and I hated it. And you said play. I can't even think of the other ones, but there's lots of them.
I think just any game where I say there's a puzzle involved, you're like, I'm out. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
they're so good. Puzzle game. And this is the first one you actually. I think was it literally because they were in a spacesuit? I just need to know that.
That's why I started it. Because you start it and you're in a spacesuit and you're on a space station, and it's like, oh yeah, the crew down on the planet. It's one of the moons of Jupiter, if I'm remembering correctly. Like, oh yeah, they're down there and like they lost communication. They haven't checked in. Like, you weren't supposed to be up for a while, but why don't you go down there and check? And I was like, okay, I'm in. Yep.
Oh my god, that is every sci-fi plot for every video game. Like, we've lost contact with group.
Yeah.
Please go see.
Uh-huh.
Oh man.
And then like, so when you get down there, basically what happens is you walk into the building and they're like, what are they doing? These were just supposed to be storage rooms. Why are there all these like weird like switches and electricity things going around? What's going on? And then the little like or the AI for the station and everything's like, oh yeah, it looks like they tried to develop a test to make sure that no AI or robots could get in. And that's why you have to solve the puzzles to basically prove that you are human, because they designed puzzles that like a robot wouldn't be able to get to. So like one of the early ones, and they reference it later in the game too, is like you throw a box through a window, and that's how you like have to move your orb around, because some of the orbs are in these boxes. So you throw it through a window and it's like, yeah, well, a robot wouldn't have well, why don't I just throw the box out the window? A robot would have thought through this. So then like,
so the Turing test is to make sure you're
yes.
a human, not to questioning whether or not. Oh, that's kind of fun. Oh, that's a fun. I like the title. That's
exactly. See, and that's like within the first half hour. So there's your hook.
That's a good hook. It's not in the trailer.
No, not at all. But yeah. So then it does get into a lot of generic sci-fi concepts. Like, almost think like Moon is one of my favorite movies, where you're kind of like, what exactly is going on here? Like, how is this person connected with all this? And it does get into kind of a pretty good mystery of like, what happened with the crew that was there? What does the AI know and not know? Like, how are you all a part of this? So
is there like a GLaDOS sort of AI the entire time?
Oh yeah.
Guiding you through?
If you want the best, like, what is this game? It's somebody played way too much Portal and came up with their own puzzle mechanic, and then just kind of did a Portal thing.
Is it funny? Like, what's the tone of the game?
It's pretty serious. There's a couple parts where it kind of jokes around a lot, but a lot of it gets really into like AI versus human. Like, what could an AI do and what could a human? What does it mean to be human? And how are AIs and humans different? And like, what can this AI do that you can't do if you're human? And if you, so kind of, it's a lot of that heady AI sci-fi talk of like, how would you handle this? And see, you handle it like that. AI wouldn't do that. Maybe you, and yeah.
Oh, that's kind of fun.
But it does get into some mystery stuff, which works really well towards the end of the game. It's short, which is nice.
Oh, that's good. How short is short?
I think I was around 3 or 4 hours.
Oh, shoot. You should have told me this earlier, that I might have actually played it and finished it.
I think I did, but that's okay.
That's possible. So what's the main mechanic, I guess, of the game? Like, the story sounds interesting, but like, what's the actual mechanic? What are you doing?
Basically, and it evolves over time, of course, but it's, again, like Portal, it's kind of, we're going to take this one simple mechanic and play on it. So the basic thing is, you have this gun-looking thing that'll collect these orbs, and you put the orbs into different switches to like transfer power to like open the doors, basically. So they get more complex as you go along. Like the first maybe 30 are just like same color, just move it to the right place, and then there's blocks that you can put them in that are metal, and then you've got magnets that you can kind of drag them around to raise them levels, and it's fairly simplistic, where it's just like, it's almost something like you would see in, I don't know, like a Dead Space game as like a one-off puzzle really quick. Like, oh yeah, like if I take the orb, take the orb from over here to over here.
That's really funny.
And then got it. And then if I take this orb and put it here, then those two beams of light connect at the door, and the door opens. It's basically that puzzle, but again with some layers on top of it. They do add in a little bit more of a mechanic later on with how you're observing the room and some things like that I don't want to get into because that does get into some spoilery stuff for the story. But
Yeah.
for the most part, you're just doing that. But it's paced really well, which I think helped me. You basically do 10 puzzles, then you get a story section. 10 puzzles, you get a story section. So it's like you do this. Yeah. So like you do the first time, like, oh, okay, we're in the crew quarters. Okay, you can kind of poke around the crew quarters, and then like you can read, like you can find your audio diaries. You can like see what's going on. You do 10 puzzles. Yeah. Oh, okay, now we're in maintenance. I can see some of the things that went wrong down here, and I can you kind of get this picture. So, just pacing wise,
I really like that pacing because I feel like a lot of games these days, like God of War especially is the one I notice it, where it's like it's one continuous journey. It's like, when can I eat food?
Yeah. and every time you walk in, there's a very clear thing before every puzzle. There's like, I want to say there's 7 chapters or 6 chapters, but there's just a line and you just fill in the blocks. So it's like, oh, okay, I'm on puzzle 9 of row 3. Okay, so I know 2 more.
Oh, that's kind of cool. Yeah,
I get my little story section. I kind of get my like information dump, and then your little AI companion kind of talks through the story section, and then that switches their dialogue up when you go into the next puzzles. And now it's like, oh, okay, now let's talk about like what you just saw. Like, oh, you saw this. Like, that person really was doing this. Like, that might have not been a good idea. Like, maybe that's what caused some of these problems.
Oh, that's kind of cool. And the story, and like that, so that those like little story bits, because I feel like sometimes the breadcrumbs can be like not interesting and will make me stop a game. Like if like the story bits they're kind of feeding you aren't that interesting, but like are they like kind of I guess the question is like, so are those story bits, are you learning more about characters that you're not seeing kind of thing, or how does that, or
the other characters are fairly throwaway. There's like I don't remember how many are actually down there on the station, but they're fairly throwaway, but you kind of get like, okay, they were doing this thing as a group. And then like, okay, these 3 or 4 people started thinking this way, and that caused these 3 or 4 people to do this thing. So you get more of a big picture. You don't necessarily get to like, oh man, like John seemed like a really nice guy. I wish John.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking like Horizon Zero Dawn, where there's like there's like a cast of characters you're not interacting with, but you're kind of
you do. I mean, like they all have names. Like the first, I think it's the first or second place you go is the crew quarters, so you can kind of go in and kind of get like, like Dr. Person's name is blank, and Dr. Person had a family, and then you go across and like, oh, engineer. Okay. But it's that wasn't the interesting part to me. But you get
no. It's funny. It's just like it's like every sci-fi game ever. I'm just thinking it's like, you always go to their cruise quarter. It's like, here's some personality because on the room, this guy plays the guitar. It's like, okay.
I will say the story is not the most original story, but it's good. It involves 3 or 4 different kind of like major sci-fi concepts. So it's one of those things where it's like it's not like you've never heard a story like this before, or like it's doing something like super ridiculously new, but it's taking a few different things, and kind of as you go, it progresses through. So you've got the like, okay, the beginning is just like, oh no, the crew's lost, go find them on the hidden planet. And then you get into like, okay, our AI's bad for a little bit of a chunk. And then you get the like, I'm trying to think of one that's not super spoilery. You get some of the like, okay, like we work for a corporation. Is the corporation the bad guy? So you kind of get some of those different things as you go through those different story sections. Each one kind of starts to point you in a different direction. And again, all fairly generic sci-fi, but it's interesting just to kind of see them all layered that way. And
so what was driving you forward if like puzzle games aren't typically your thing? Like why this one? Was it the setting that really got you?
It's the setting, it's the story. I'm a sucker for anything sci-fi and space, so it's pretty.
I'll do your goddamn puzzles if I get the story.
Exactly. And again, and I think really what it was one of those where it was like, I can see the layout of the puzzles. I know I'm on puzzle 8. Just, okay, 2 more of these stupid things, and you'll tell me some interesting stuff. The puzzles actually were also really paced well themselves, where it'd be like, you do like 3 really quick rooms where it's like, okay, each one of those puzzles took me about 30 seconds, and then you get one that took you like 5 minutes. And then you get 2 or 3. So it's not like, I feel like a lot of puzzle games, it's like the first 20 puzzles are like 10 seconds done. And then you get 20 that are like 5 minutes, and the last 10 take you like a half hour. It's those are interspersed kind of throughout. So even that last chapter, it's okay. Here's like 2 that just took me a minute or 2. Here's one that took me 5 minutes. Here's one that took me a minute or 2. So I think that helped just kind of keep the pacing up, where it's not like I ever felt like I've been trying to figure out this one thing for like an hour and I'm just frustrated. It's like, okay, That one took
Yeah.
me a few minutes, and most of the puzzles were kind of that where you're like, okay, what do I do? And you're like, oh, if I do, oh, yep, okay, there it is. So none of the puzzles got to
Yeah,
that
yeah.
like, oh my god, I want to just smash my head into the wall right now, which I don't like.
I I like that feeling sometimes. I like when I have to I think I need a notebook. Let me go grab
No,
the notebook.
you will not need a notebook for this game, and thank God, because I would not have played it. But
Yeah.
it's one of those games I think where, and it's a perfect Game Pass game where this is just one of those simple things. It's a simple story that's got some cool layers to it. It's a simple gameplay mechanic that they handle really well. It's a really well paced game, and it works. So
Cool. I might download it. We'll see if I
that
can
means
play.
nothing from you.
I want to see the intro. I'm curious about the intro. I'm curious about the story hook. That's actually what I'm more curious about.
I mean, again, it's Game Pass. I think PC, Xbox, everything. So give it a shot. Pretty good little short puzzle game. We are Workforce Gaming. You can follow us on Twitter at Workforce Gaming. Subscribe to us wherever you're listening, and we will see you later.
Bye.